To kick off the year, America has sadly had to have a bit of a taste of the European experience, because it turns out the Christmas period and New Year period is not just a time for European-based terror attacks, but American as well. Now, the authorities are not saying definitively that these two incidents are terror attacks yet, but they are investigating them with the suspicion that they might be so, which might also be helped along by the fact that one of them, a driver in New Orleans who rammed down a crowd of people, killing 15, had an ISIS flag in his car. So that might lead some to believe that this was terror-related, although people are not saying it definitively as of yet, so we'll see what investigations happen.
The far right are saying it on Twitter.
Well, yes, and also, well, to be fair, I watched the CNN coverage of it, and even they had a few contributors who were saying, like, come on.
It's an ISIS flag.
Come on, what else are we supposed to say about this? But of course they are going to potentially deflect and say that, they were trying to say that, it wasn't necessarily that he was doing it on behalf of ISIS.
He just liked the pattern on the flag.
Just that, it was personal reasons to do with the fact that he was heavily in debt and he was radicalized by the kind of violent rhetoric of ISIS to do violent things, not necessarily related to ISIS goals.
Oh, okay.
So why can't we just call a spade a spade?
That was very, very torturous logic that I saw from them. But the first of the ones that I'm going to talk about is the Trump hotel attack, which happened in Las Vegas. Now, that was a Cybertruck, so Elon Musk branding.
Yeah.
Combined with an explosion at the Trump Towers, so you could make a reasonable assumption that this was something anti-MAGA that was going on. Clearly, because obviously Elon's heavily involved with MAGA at this point. So
if you're a detective, it's the first place you'd look.
Obviously, but the person who was in the driver's seat of this Cybertruck when it exploded is the only person who has been killed in this incident. 7 people were injured, and police have said that they're not naming any of the individuals involved, and the police themselves have not named the man who was behind the driver's wheel at the time of the explosion, but the local news have named him as Matthew Livelsberger, or Livelsberger, however you're supposed to pronounce that. So I'll just go through some of the details that are given in this BBC article. The truck itself was rented in Colorado and drove all the way to Las Vegas on Wednesday morning, less than 2 hours before the detonation. It parked in front of the hotel near a glass entrance and then started to smoke and then exploded. Now, people are saying that, this is props to Elon for designing his Cybertruck the way that he did. It was actually the way that the Cybertruck was designed meant that the explosion, instead of spreading outwards, went straight up. And as you can see from this image here, the front end of the truck is still mostly intact. So actually, none of the glass was damaged. Not much of anything else was damaged but the Cybertruck. Obviously, it was a big enough explosion that it hurt 7 other people. But actually, fair play to it, it could have been a lot worse because the Cybertruck itself contained the blast to a certain extent, which is, very, very impressive. And this actually only happened at 8:40 PT, which was only hours after a man drove a truck through the crowd in New Orleans. 15 people died in that attack and dozens were injured. Now, people are, of course, speculating whether this was a coordinated attack on both ends, which is especially helped by the fact that both of these vehicles that were used were rented by the same company, Turo, an app-based car rental company, and both of the men, this Matthew Livelsberger and the New Orleans attacker, which is, I've heard his name pronounced as Shamsuddin Jabbar, both were on the same American military base. They both are veterans of the American military. So there's a lot of strange connections that are being made between these, not to mention the coordination of the attacks happening within hours of one another, and this is fueling a lot of speculation. Some people are saying that it was an inside job. I don't know if there's anything to say about that. Some people are wondering if there has been some kind of radicalization cell operating within the American military. Some are, of course, saying that it might just all be a coincidence. But again, your mileage with any of those theories may vary right now when we're still in the preliminary stages of investigation. The FBI have said the agency are looking into whether the incident might be an act of terrorism. They're not currently confirming the identity of the driver, but obviously the local news have done. The sheriff noted that both of the vehicles were rented from the same company, and the company itself said in the statement that the company was working with authorities in Las Vegas and New Orleans to help with the investigation. Spokesperson noted both renters appeared to not have a criminal background that would have identified either of them as a security threat. And, necessarily why would they? They were both in the military. At least one of them was an Afghan veteran, right, which was the New Orleans attacker, which makes it more ironic that he ended up, attacking them with an ISIS flag.
He's just annoyed that the Taliban took over rather than ISIS.
Yeah, clearly. He watched Callum's video and was appalled. We actually have footage that was released of the explosion of the Cybertruck, which is only very, very short, but you can watch it here. Let's take a look at it.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean about the going straight up.
Yeah, it goes straight up, and you might notice something very strange about all of the flashes that happen immediately afterwards. That's because Elon Musk and Tesla immediately went looking into what was going on and found that because some people were saying, the lithium battery leaked, caused the fire that caused an explosion. Some were trying to speculate initially that this was an accident. In fact, what was found in the back of the truck was explosives and fireworks, which spread the explosion.
I feel like there's probably a joke to be made about New Year's fireworks there, but it's probably in poor taste, so I'm not going to make it.
It might be. It might be. Again, local news have reported that this is a gentleman called Matthew Livelsberger, who is now dead, who was the driver. Multiple sources told ABC affiliate Denver 7 and KOAA News that Livelsberger, 37, a former Army veteran of Colorado Springs, was behind the wheel of the vehicle which exploded outside of Trump International Hotel. He allegedly died in the blast, according to sources. Police are still not confirming his name, and again, he and Shamsuddin Jabbar served at the same military base in Colorado Springs. And you can also see that people were reporting, showing his LinkedIn page, which gives a detailed background of his military history. He'd been in the US Army for 19 years. As of right now, this guy, we do not know anywhere near as much about as Jabbar and why he may have done it. People don't know if he did it for ideological reasons, which might be the case given that obviously it was a Cybertruck outside of a Trump hotel, but there was no iconography like the ISIS flag found at the scene of this. So investigations are still pending. We'll see what happens. In New Orleans, again, what's happened is Shamsuddin Jabbar drove a truck at high speed into crowds around 3:15 a.m. before crashing and exchanging fire with 3 police officers who then killed him in the exchange of gunfire. So good on them for neutralizing that threat, even though obviously they couldn't they couldn't save those 15 people's lives, tragically. Jabbar served almost 8 years in the army, including a deployment in Afghanistan, and was honorably discharged. He recently converted to Islam and began behaving erratically, according to his ex-wife's husband. An Islamic State flag, weapons, and potential explosive devices were found in the truck that officials say he used in the attack. So again, there's another similarity here, which was that explosive devices were found in this car. It just seems that in this situation, he wasn't able to get them off. So again, signs of potential coordination. The investigation says that the ISIS flag and potential bombs have raised the specter that the international terrorist group played a role in the attack. Alethea Duncan, Assistant Special Agent for the FBI in New Orleans, urged anyone who's had contact with them in the last 72 hours to reach out to law enforcement. We're aggressively running down every lead, including those of his known associates. Now, as well, his home, I believe, was in Houston, Texas, and I have seen footage of an armored police vehicle outside of that home arresting all of the occupants, and you can see that there's people coming out of the home with their arms up, reversing back to them being arrested, and the FBI themselves have said they are not treating this as though the attacker was alone in planning this, so they think that a few people may have been involved. That might end up to include Livelsberger as well, but we'll see. Officials said that the security bollards along a section of Bourbon Street where the attack happened had been removed for repairs in preparation for the Super Bowl next month. Patrol cars and barriers had been set up to block access instead, but the attacker drove around them. Superintendent Kirkpatrick said that we did indeed have a plan to stop terrorism, but the terrorists defeated it.
Great.
That's incredibly reassuring, isn't it? Good job, guys. At least the police were able to neutralize him before he could cause any more damage, before he could set off the explosives. But good God, this should never have happened in the first place. But then again, we saw the last month of 2024 in Germany, that the bollards of peace do not actually do that much to stop these kinds of attacks in the first place. So every step of protection, every stage of protection for the public in incidents like these is woefully inadequate. The army veteran, they say, who rammed a pickup into New Year's revelers was inspired by the Islamic State terrorist organization, according to Biden, because he came out and did a press conference about this. In videos posted to social media shortly before the attack in New Orleans that killed at least 15, the man himself, Jabbar, had indicated he had a desire to kill. So I've not been able to find those videos. I assume they have been completely scrubbed and taken off of the internet. But I would have been very interested to see them, because again, it would mirror what happened in Germany last month, where the attacker had basically posted on social media, left a trail saying, by the way, I'm going to kill people. Yeah. I will cause a terrorist attack and murder people for the sake of my own beliefs. Now, he was doing it as kind of like a weird counter-jihad, anti-Islam thing.
Yeah. Pro-immigration, counter-jihad.
Yes, but either way, the result is the same, which is that some radical posted all over social media, I'm going to kill people. And then anti-terrorist measures in the city were woefully inadequate to actually do anything to stop it.
Yeah, but Harry, we were keeping close tracks on the far right.
Well, at least there's that. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, what was it? The FBI or the CIA said that white supremacy is one of their biggest targets in the US because, you get so many white supremacist terrorist attacks like this in the US, don't you? And across Europe. The president said that he had been briefed on the New Orleans attacks post by federal investigators who were looking into his possible ties. In some of the videos, the suspect said that he had pledged allegiance to ISIS and appeared to be driving, in the videos as well. He was 42 from Texas, and he died in the shootout. So again, there are some who are going to say, "Oh, it might not be terrorism. It might not be. It might just be that he had 2 ex-wives. He'd run up a lot of bills and debts, so he decided to just do this and just happened to pledge allegiance to ISIS as he was doing so."
Among Us has not done this.
I mean, to be fair, right, I am prepared to accept the idea that a guy kind of going down a spiral mentally in his lifestyle, that does have an effect on somebody. But that's not to say that the, pledging allegiance to ISIS and converting to Islam and all the rest of it is completely, not a factor here. Because the two, you can have both. Why can't we have both?
Yeah, he
Why
could
can't
be a
we blame
mental
both?
who decides the way out is convert to Islam and join ISIS.
Yeah.
Totally plausible.
Yeah.
That's not some sort of exculpatory factor.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. They're not mutually exclusive. If anything, they are. They quite sort of reinforce
imagine
each
a lot
other.
of terrorists have got mental issues.
In the chain of logic, it's a reason. Yeah. One of multiple reasons. There can be a multi-factor analysis done of this. Either way, again, he was from the military. There was a video that he had posted in 2020 explaining his background, how he was starting businesses, things like that. It doesn't really seem to have much relevant information, but people are sharing the video because it seems right now it's the only footage that's publicly available of him that hasn't been scrubbed, because I don't know why they wouldn't want us having those videos where he pledges allegiance to ISIS. Maybe there's extra information in there that hasn't been released to the public. If you have access to those videos or have seen them and there's extra information in there, I'd be very interested to hear what was said. Here's a photograph of the ISIS flag that was found in his car.
Right. Seems pretty cut and dried.
Yeah. And again, people have been theorizing about this. Some people have been going pretty far with them. Not that I say that there's anything wrong with theorizing. Where Clint Russell, for instance, has been saying the hydraulic barriers were taken down to stop vehicle attacks. The attacker was a U.S. military vet wielding an AR in body armor plus IEDs. Trump Tower attack was a Cybertruck explosion in Vegas. A lot of people are very suspicious of all of the parallels.
Yeah,
and a lot of the connections between these.
It's not like this would be the first time the FBI have done something like this. And of course, they're very worried, and we know, in fact, they're very worried about Trump coming into office and putting Kash Patel in charge of the FBI. So this is genuine. It could well be.
To play devil's advocate, I mean, I would say, I see the parallels here, and I see the kind of narrative that's being sketched out. But I mean, I can't see the objective here. I can't see what this has achieved. And I mean, like it hasn't. I mean, the Trump Tower one didn't kill anybody. Didn't seem to do any damage to the building itself. Didn't seem to discredit Elon Musk, because his vehicle survived.
But even if it hadn't survived, how would that discredit?
Well,
Elon
that's
Musk?
I mean, sure.
Put a bomb in it and blew it up.
Yeah.
It might have just been one of those kind of political statements. We are in the era of pointless, suicidal political statements. Remember, Mister, I'm going to set myself on fire for Palestine.
He's not the only one.
There's a few like that. So I mean, we live in horrible times. Yeah. We live in horrible times where people are politically isolated, radicalized, and
have mental health problems,
and have major mental health problems, and feel the need to do extreme and terrible things to get their point across. So with the case of the Cybertruck, maybe he was acting alone, and this was just a situation where he went a bit crazy.
Maybe, but if he was trying to make a political statement, why sit in the truck when it blew up? Like, why would you?
Laser glory. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make sense.
No.
But
then maybe we're trying to read sense into something that just completely is just an expression of insanity, basically.
Could be.
Yeah, and again, one of the other things that really got people thinking was the fact that both of them were at the same military base. So people are wondering what the connections are. But again, right now, a lot of the information is coming out. We'll see what happens with investigations. If anybody has any extra information to give us, we're happy to hear it. But right now, we're in the dark about a lot of this. All I can say is that, thoughts and prayers going out to everybody who was involved in either attack, those injured in Las Vegas, and those killed and injured in New Orleans. These things are always a tragedy, and it's awful that we have to start the new year this way.
Unfortunately, it's just a part of life in the West at this point. It's just
part and parcel.
Yeah, it literally is part and parcel.
Every city slowly becomes Baghdad.
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see what else we're up to, you can always watch Connor's series, Tomlinson Talks, this episode on how to move the Overton window. And if you want to see all the other work we're putting out, you can always follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.